Hello, everyone, and welcome to Wavelength's Roundtable on Alumni Benefit Suite. We're going to be focusing really on what can you be offering in the variety of engagement opportunities to your alumni. It's thinking through in-person, online portals, content, you name it. And the questions we'll really be covering today are what constitutes an alumni benefit? What types of engagement opportunities should you be offering to your alumni base? How do your alumni become aware of the benefits you have to offer? And should you sunset any benefits? If so, how do you approach the process? With that in mind, we are very much of the mindset here at Wavelength that engagement automatically is going to lead to higher donations, more donations, and um, larger, longer term relationships. So, what you want to be is really intentional with how you are engaging and where are you putting your efforts. To start, let's talk about what constitutes an alumni benefit. First of all, there are a wide variety of things that an alumni benefit could actually be considered. As I mentioned before, it could be content, maybe it's a newsletter, maybe it's a social profile, social posting on Instagram, maybe it's volunteering. Do you have mentors? Do you have class captains? Is it networking? Do you have job boards? Do you have career days? There could be reunions and other events. You could be doing recognition of alumni sports awards to swag and materials that you send out to larger donors or the most participants in a class. You might have an online portal as well. So, as you're thinking about this variety, what you want to consider is that really alumni also have the ability to have touch points with every single part of your alumni, of your community base. We've used this visual before. It's really focused on trying to understand that alumni participate in your entire end-to-end community engagement, from them being a student themselves to them being perhaps a future family member. They're also the word of mouth marketing. They can be the ability to just profile them as a marketing tool for admissions, to having them be wearing your school colors and swag, as mentioned before. They can just be marketing as they're talking with their neighbors if they're still in your area. So, what you really want to focus on here is alumni have the ability to be in all aspects of your current school initiatives. And so, when you do think about what are all of those potential alumni benefits you have to offer, you are probably offering more than you know by already having school events and other opportunities to loop them into initiatives that already exist today. So, going back to this visual, what you want to focus on is there are a bunch of different opportunities around different access points to engage with your alumni who are local or abroad or returning for reunions or otherwise. Make sure you're addressing those less than obvious alumni engagement points as well. So when you're thinking about it, are you offering both high and low touch points? Do you have people who can just receive an email, review it, that's their touch point, to those who are returning back, flying in for specific events, even if their family no longer lives in the area? Are you providing structured and unstructured contact points? By that, are you having anywhere from a low-key cocktail hour where everyone can join and chit chat to a structured, let's say, career panel where you're actually asking specific people to complete roles? Are you also providing an approachable light to no contact group initiative? By that, I mean, if an alum has not been engaged with your institution of late, maybe they dropped out of contact, maybe they're just returning back and are in a different life stage and want to re-engage, are the offerings that you provide approachable to those who might not have been in contact with you recently? Or is it too intensive, or are you only catering to those that are more engaged constituents? That's the same thing with acknowledging and celebrating those more engaged constituents. You do want to address the spectrum. Do you have offerings across the board? Variety is key here. So in that variety type, I am only sharing like super high level thoughts. None of these should be surprising. You want to really gather, and I'm going to walk us through an activity a little bit later on these slides. But what you really want to do is think through what are those in-person initiatives you have to offer. As I mentioned, school events that aren't alumni specific, you can absolutely take advantage of. To what are those online accessible options for alumni who might not be geographically in the area? So when you're thinking about it, how exactly is that online experience working in tandem with the in-person? Are you addressing the spectrum of you've got a large base of alumni, various life stages, various interests of engaging with you? And what you want to make sure you do is you have those buckets. You're addressing all of those potential needs behind people who want it to engage from the social aspect, to engage with the school and give back, whether that's donations, volunteering, working with current students, maybe being a mentor for young alumni. Is it career related and networking related? There are all these different buckets. Ultimately, you have to be the one to define what are those priorities for you as an individual and you as an institution. So the activity that I just referenced, this is something that you're going to want to take back. All these slides are going to be shared with you. What you want to do is think through writing out every possible benefit and touch point you have with the alumni today. What are you offering? Even if it's the smallest thing, like it's a school event, you're publishing this to a social media base or a social media channel that'll have alumni following it. You want to think through all of the potential touch points from more formal events that take a lot of money and resources to just opportunities for alumni to engage with you. As you start just throwing those ideas out and capturing them, you want to start to categorize them into buckets that I just mentioned. Those buckets sort of have to be defined by you. They might fit into this, like these content, volunteer, networking events. Here are just a few just to get you off the ground, but it's going to be so school specific in terms of what you're already offering today. What I would do is the value of all of our roles here is we are alums from the same institutions. So you can think through what is the school that I attended doing, and you can really do some crowdsourcing around what else are other people doing for ideas. At Wavelength, we actually do a lot of collaborative sharing with our clients around schools who are doing similar things or have similar challenges or goals and being able to share out best practices. I urge you to be able to find that network, or if you have questions of, hey, this is a challenge, we're happy to give ideas too of best practices we've heard. And this is well beyond our online portal that we have to offer. But as you're starting to categorize those engagement points, what you want to think through is of those categories, do we over offer in one? Do we have just so much content? We have multiple magazines, we have newsletters, we have social media posts. Like we offer so much content, but do we have the events? Do we have the ability for classmates to connect with classmates in that social capacity, even if it's not through a formal gathering as an in-person event goes? Do you have are you targeting people across various ages? Those questions you can think right now about. However, unless you've got everything written out and starting to be put into those buckets, oftentimes you'll miss something, especially when you're starting to think through what bucket is missing. Now, as you're thinking through what are we offering, what are those categories, what might be lacking, what are we excelling at, what you want to determine is the quality of those touch points. How many people are you reaching out to? How impactful is that touch point? How much effort does it take to complete that touch point? And how active are people with that touch point? By that, I mean you post to social media. It means everyone who's following you has the ability to see. It's lower effort to be able to deliver. What are people doing with that? Is there a call to action? Are they liking? Are they engaging? Data is going to be your friend here. We're going to talk about it in a little bit. But ultimately, you really want to focus on what of the entire list of everything going on, what's that effort versus impact? We have shown this in previous roundtables. I will continue to return back to this. The effort versus impact matrix is going to be really, really helpful for you to consider as you want to think through all of those initiatives you have. Look at the school year, look at your summer plans. We are all very busy individuals. You are all wearing multiple hats, being pulled in multiple different directions because your constituents have all different needs. You've got alumni asking for needs, you have goals that your leadership is asking for, you're trying to manage it all. This is where you're going to be able to identify where is my largest impact with minimal to some effort, and understanding that if you have something, an effort can be defined by resources, like how much time is it going to take between me and other staff members, to what is the dollar value, to what you have to think through all of the resources that go into that effort section. And the more that goes into it, you have to think through what's that impact zone. And by impact, that doesn't always have to imply total number of alumni. Yes, you want to try and address the largest population as possible, but there's also an understanding, and this goes back to the engagement pyramid roundtable that we've talked about in a few months ago. But bottom line, there is going to be a small number of alumni that you will want to provide high effort and high impact for those individuals because they might be going through major donor status. You might be looking for long-term relationships with them over time because they could have giving capability down the line. So when you're thinking about that impact versus effort, what you want to do is really look at what is the intent behind the activity or engagement point that you're providing? How much effort is it to do a one-off? So this is a perfect example. I'm using events as example points for engagement. But if you have an online portal, that's 24/7, 365 days a year. What is that level of engagement required for you to manage versus is that self-managed by the alum themselves? So whenever you're adding new technology, adding new benefits to your benefit suite, what you want to consider is not only this impact versus effort matrix, but the ongoing effort to manage. If you're starting a new event, you have to not only think about that inaugural first time, but you want to think through if we're going to maintain this year over year, are there ways to reduce that effort? Are there ways to repurpose or use volunteers to be able to, if it's a successful situation, return back and continue to offer this benefit? Unless you have the reasoning of this is a 25th reunion, this is a 50th, like, or a 100th year celebration of the school where this is a one-off, there might be expectations from your alumni that there is a return of this benefit to them. You're going to want to consider that as you're adding more to your benefit suite. So we just talked through like categories, what can be a benefit. It can be so many different things, but how do your alumni actually know the benefit exists? The challenge is there are so many different ways alumni can hear about it from you, but they might not because they've lost contact with you. So are they going to your website? Are they hearing it from word of mouth? Are they receiving an email from you? Are they seeing it on social profiles? Do they hear it from classmates? Do they get a direct mail? What you want to think through is what that inbound versus outbound opportunity is for an alum to be aware of the benefit suite you have to offer. Is your website easily searchable so alum can go and see this is my part of that website. There's a specific site for me. Here's all of the benefits available to me. I can see upcoming events. I can see, gatherings with other alumni. Is there an alumni directory tool, class notes, a place for me to update my information? That is inbound. Otherwise, and there's a select type of alum who is actually going to take that action to go to your website to seek out information. You lose a large population if you also don't do inbound. You're not actively marketing and messaging them to be aware of what is available to them as an alum. When you're doing that outbound marketing, though, what you have to understand is what your data health stands as today, because what do you have as contactable alumni versus what do you have as total alumni? For example, when you're thinking about engagement levels, what you really want to think through, and this is every time you're thinking engagement, every time you're thinking of your alumni benefits, you want to look at the data health of how many people are taking advantage of this event or this initiative. How, again, that effort matrix, impact matrix, you really want to make sure that all of the benefits you have to offer are worthwhile. So when you're thinking about the data health, you can be offering the best alumni benefits out there, but if you don't have contactable alumni, then they're not going to be aware that it even exists. So let's say you have an event, you've got a reunion, you invite X number of people to show up. Sorry, you invite all of your alumni, you have X number of people showing up. You're going to want to really do the breakdown of here's the percentage that actually arrived and attended out of the total number of alumni that exist versus, and I'll, sorry, caveat that by saying living alumni. And then you want to also consider what are the number of alumni you actually reached out to versus attended, because that is a very different number. And it's important to understand that there is a lot of probably dollars on the table and alumni on the table that if they never heard from you from outbound messaging because you've lost contact with them, then they didn't even know the event existed in the first place. So this goes back to the benefit suite. If you do not have clear data practices to maintain updated data, you're going to not have your alumni taking full advantage of what you have to offer. So making sure your website, yes, that's where you can have people who've lost touch come back, but ultimately you just don't want to lose contact with them because it loses out on all this potential relationship for the rest of their lives with your institution. So how are you really going to keep your data up to date? We have said this multiple times on previous roundtables. Data decays at 25% each year. So when your data, you might grab the young alumni as they're graduating, get those emails from them. But if you think about it, they're either going off to college, they're going off to their first job, whatever their next step is, it's for a brief year to 4 years, and then they're moving, then they're changing jobs, then they're going to their first job, they're potentially going to grad school, whatever it might be. This is very quick changes that an alum is going through, and it's so easy to lose contact with them. That's just the young alumni stage, let alone anyone else along their life stage. But are you finding a way to make sure they're updating their information? Is that also, are you showing them value of, hey, we want your data because you will benefit from this alumni benefit suite of offerings if we have this information and it's up to date. So make sure you are aware of your current baseline of your data, as well as how are you going to keep that up to date over time. And sometimes, if it's been a few years since you've gathered data and there's been changing in staff and all of that, sometimes there needs to be a data enrichment. We have the ability to be finding lost emails, social profiles, career, education. You want to make sure that you have the ability to find that missing and lost data, especially before big reunion years or maybe celebration years for your school. So when you're thinking about what to add to your alumni benefit suite, honestly, data management, that's going to be one thing that you have to consider as an effort part of that matrix. So when you're thinking about sunsetting benefits, before we even jump in about like adding new or sunsetting, I used to work at a financial institution where they offered credit cards, and there was a lot of research, scientific research done around how many people remember the total number of benefits or just like what their recall is of something. From a credit card standpoint, even though the institution I worked for offered a credit card that had over 37 different benefits, the average recall rate was 3 to 4 benefits. That's also across the board on everything else. People's recall when it comes to total number from lists is usually that 3 to 4 number. So when you're thinking about what you have to offer to your alumni, again, going back to what I stated earlier on this call, yes, you want to make sure you're offering a wide variety of opportunities to be accessible to a broad base of alumni needs and level of engagement, but you don't want to boil the ocean. If you all of a sudden are offering too much and you're not being led by your alumni telling you what they want or showing just statistically through the data, this is where we get the most uptick of engagement. Um, I would say it's important to consider whether a benefit should be offered or not. You want to be able to identify those where the effort is just not worth putting in for the output of engagement and number of alumni that are impacted and what that result is. Now, engagement can be defined in many different ways. If you're thinking about ultimately engagement leading to donations too, you want to think about the cost of what your staffing plus dollar value to host or deliver on a benefit is when it comes to actually that output range. So sunsetting benefits. As I mentioned, more isn't always better. You want to prioritize what is the most important for the priorities of your school. So, going back to that exercise at the beginning of the call, and again, I know this is a take-home exercise for you all in the office. After you've written every single touch point and engagement offering you have to your alumni base, of those offerings, how many of them are fitting to your school's vision, their values, and goal priorities right now? Sometimes it's going to be a stretch to try and categorize this, but it is important to consider that you look back at, we've always offered this, and you might not actually question, should we? This is the time to see, are there current values and visions that your school currently has that isn't being reflected in alumni offerings? There's a school that I'm aware of that has completely updated their curriculum to include, they've got a garden that across all K-12 ages, the garden is actually contributing to the cafeteria food. They also are having science classes for all ages to go out there, same with the art classes. That's an initiative that in the last decade or two has just taken off and it is now a core curriculum point. And alum might not be aware of that change. And so part of what the school has done when it comes to alumni initiatives is actually hosting an event in that new gardening space so that alumni are aware of these new initiatives happening and the new priorities that the school is aligning with. So really consider, of all the benefits, are they fitting into the future vision and the goals that were set out to you from leadership? Then it's identifying that matrix again, impact, effort. Are there any that you might want to sunset? And that could be like official cancellation. That is a little scarier. That's usually a lot more, pushback to quiet, roll off, just not offer it. And if an alum like happens to mention it to you, you can have a speaking point to why it's not being offered right now. Same with like taking it off the website. With the understanding of, hey, are these current benefits fitting into what the school's values are? Are there any benefits that are just taking way too long? And when I say a benefit, if we're talking newsletters and you're struggling to find content on a monthly cadence, you can reduce that to bi-monthly, to quarterly. You don't have to completely cancel something. You just have to understand, yes, it's always been done this way before. Does this make sense? Because if you look at the marketing calendar, if you are doing monthly newsletters, depending on your school's approach, your alumni might also be receiving other school-wide communications in other capacities. So it's not as though you're losing 6 months of the year, a touch point with your alumni base. They just might be getting a contact point in a different capacity. Or back to the data, maybe instead of a newsletter, you ask the coach of the season of various sport to say, hey, can you write a letter to the soccer alums on how the season went? And that is the touch point that's personalized, more meaningful, and loops in another person to help out that might be a lower lift than doing a full publication each month. So you want to really think through, it's not an either or. There is that gray area of, is there an adaptation you can make that is going to be more meaningful, that's going to allow you to address that. Also, as you're thinking about the engagement points, you're going to have certain months that are a lot busier. Think of giving campaigns and alumni reunions and graduations. There are certain hot times throughout the year. And if you're just having to offer a benefit for benefit's sake during that time, you want to really schedule it out to say, does this make sense to offer at all? Or should we change the timing to fit to a quieter period that would better suit the ebb and flow of your school year and your own schedule? So Part of this is identifying what is missing as a benefit. Not only is it, hey, of all the categories, is there anything we're not offering? Or of all of the alumni along their life stage, we're really missing that 30 to 40-year-old age group where, they might not be coming back to reunions, they might be starting their own families. How are we staying relevant to them? You want to find those missing pieces and be able to insert opportunities, but also don't force it. This is where, as you're adding new in, you're able to do this test and learn. You can soft launch and trial things without, especially if it's not an official event, you can be trialing out things and also provide feedback from alumni. Ask for it. They're going to be able to tell you. And this is where you can really test from the data. We offered this. What's this engagement compared to previous engagement points that are from comparable offerings? So when you're thinking about like adjusting, this is what I was just mentioning. You don't have to just cancel, you don't have to just add. Can you update? Can you adjust? Can you add on to school offerings with the alumni angle? So you've got homecoming. What additional alumni programming can you offer? Are there arts initiatives where you can be inviting alumni back? Are there times where you can be taking initiatives, current initiatives that are happening, loop alumni in, and that is low stakes, low barrier to entry, but a big win to adding variety to your benefit suite. When you're thinking about what is best around a benefit, being able to help the widest variety of alum to a single alumni point, what you want to go back to is who is missing out, who is overly being supported, and sometimes over support is okay. Maybe you're understanding that like near retirement age, there could be giving opportunities. Maybe you're thinking young alumni, you want to hyper focus on that so you don't lose contact with them. I'm not saying more contact is bad or disproportionate is bad. It's just this is a way to visualize what is truly useful or not to you when it comes to write it all out, have that visual representation of, I would suggest almost like a Figma layout board where you're able to not only put buckets of this is the type of category the benefit has to support, it's also you can categorize that against a timeline of an alum at various stages along their life. So you can start to understand we are targeting those who are geographically very close. We're missing out on those who are geographically dispersed, and it's really hard to rein them back in. And if they can't attend an event, what do we have to offer them for them to still feel engaged? Do you have fireside chats? Do you have Zoom like interviews with really well-loved staff and faculty? They're all different opportunities to allow for a wider variety of alumni to be impacted. You just need to visualize that and identify the holes. So when you're thinking, is this actually what our alumni want? One, as I mentioned, you all are alums yourself from your own school, so you have the ability to kind of self-reflect a little bit. Two is that you have alumni you're in contact with. Now, the danger with overusing highly engaged alum is that they have different needs than, let's say, an alum who isn't frequently engaged, might be in a different life stage than the alumni you typically engage with in the first place. So what you want to do is get feedback. Have feedback though that either whether it's a form, whether it's trying to take advantage of maybe you have an alum who isn't playing the role of an alum, but they're a parent currently. Or perhaps you can do a unique one-off outreach to some lower engaged alumni saying, we're trying to get your class more engaged. Do you have any feedback of what you want? Or this is an idea we have. Is this something that's of interest? You don't need to do this as broad sweeping across to the entire base of alumni, but what you do want to do is make sure you aren't speaking only to those who are going to say yes, yes, yes to everything. Otherwise, you're going to be at the danger of over offering the number of benefits and just having way too many initiatives going on at once. The other thing here is that if there are initiatives that people want that you can't offer, You might be able to offer through volunteer support. So whether you have an alumni association or maybe you have like a really engaged class, you could, if it's a trusted individual, loop them in and have this volunteer say, we want you to be the pilot or the beta on this. And if this works, we'll roll it out to other interested classes. But this is really like up to you and we'll be able to provide XYZ support. We're not going to run this ourselves. So what you want to do there is identify those alumni. Again, it's contactable alumni. It's what are you tracking to see whether they're engaged or not? What are you able to track beyond events, which is attendance? That's easy. What is your email server able to provide you with open rates? What are they able to tell you by a unique profile in terms of what they are and aren't doing with content engagement to who are they speaking to at your school? What is your CRM and database tracking? And if multiple people have multiple touch points with your alumni, where do you have a centralized location where you can house all that information? Because you can identify potential volunteers, potential more higher engaged alumni if you do that personal invite to them. So back to that sunset conversation or change in offering, you are always going to have alumni who will voice displeasure. You're going to have that, it's inevitable. So what we recommend with that, even if you're just quietly removing an offering, you want talking points about change. This is also if you're adding new benefits, because there might be an outcry of like, why are you changing this? Or you're adding that, but why aren't you focusing on this other initiative? Having talking points, those quick FAQs in the back of your pocket before something goes live is huge because the last thing you want to be doing is scrambling. Whether that's because someone's asking a question around, like, why is this changed? I'm unhappy. I'm like threatening to withhold donations. You want to not have to be stressed about your talking points. You want to make sure that also your entire team, even if you're a team of one, but you're going to have other people who are interacting with alumni, you need everyone to be prepared with those talking points. And that's where you're really able to finesse that language. You can, depending on the severity of that change, you might need to have leadership uh, be able to approve whatever language you're using about the deletion of the end of an event or the change of an event. But you really just want to be sure, be prepared because alumni, even if they don't understand that, you're one of the 5 people that still love this benefit, no one else out of the thousands we have are using this, we're trying to prioritize our efforts elsewhere. You have to finesse that language around why is that change. And it goes back to those school values, the vision, all of that. There's a reason behind the change you're making, and it does not have to be, oh, no one else is interested. We are, continuing to prioritize the vision of X. We're trying to update and enhance this experience, and eventually we'll loop in that. There's a lot of finesse language that can be offered. Just don't be caught on your back foot. Be prepared beforehand. So I know I'm over our 30-minute mark, but I appreciate your time. We're going to be sharing these slides out. Again, I'm going to go to the very top here of the impact matrix. You want to make sure, regardless of the benefits you're offering, to consider the amount of effort it's going in to actually deliver on any of these visions you have and who is being impacted. Are you shouting out to a void of you're creating this, but no one's aware that it exists because you don't have contactable alumni? Are you creating something that exists, but actually your alumni aren't interested in? That's where this is a really great gut check of effort versus impact. Where do you stand? And is it worth your while? This also helps in dialogue with your leadership, with your team, as you're trying to prioritize where you put your efforts into next year's school planning. You can actually create a graphic like this and put in multiple different of your benefit suite here so you can visualize who are you targeting, what is the effort, and label all those benefits on this matrix. And you can actually put a prioritization of these are absolute yeses, this must be delivered on. This would be nice to have, but if it needs to be tweaked, let's remove this benefit, or let's reduce the frequency of, you don't need to have 6 different webinars for career support throughout the year. What if it's 3 webinars asking for, career panels, and instead it's a blog post? You're trying to weigh that weight and effort in terms of still being able to deliver on a benefit. So thank you all for your time. We will share out the recording, we'll share out the slides shortly. And if you have any questions, feel free to reach out. And we'll be sending out, we're going to take a brief pause in this early July time on the roundtables, but we'll start up in late July having those bi-monthly, so twice monthly roundtables moving forward. Thank you, everyone. I'm on the call also if anyone needs to stay and ask questions, but we'll be closing up because I know we went over today.